Sup Shredders! My name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Wang Feng titled When I Miss You. And if we switch over to here, this is another one of these self-directed videos that I'm doing at the moment. Primarily because there are musicians that we have reviewed on this channel, whether through the live streams or through Patreon stuff or whatever. But we've done like album reviews, but we haven't actually looked at their singles, for example. And so with Wang Feng, I think the only thing from Wang Feng that we have is actually their album review. Apparently we reviewed their album Faith is in the Air previously. So we're going to be checking out a track today titled When I Miss You. It's one of their biggest tracks or uploads on YouTube, and we're going to listen through it from start to finish. And we're going to hear what we think. I'm going to have a quick look through the lyrics at the end of this as well, just before we get into it, but let's go.
那一天我漫步在夕阳下，看见一对恋人相互依偎。
It's beautiful, isn't it?
那一刻往事涌上心头，刹那间我泪如雨下。昨夜我静在绿雨中，望着街对面一动不动。
A little bit of wonderment in that arpeggio there.
那一刻仿佛回到从前。 不由得我已泪流满面，至少有10年不曾流泪，至少有10首歌给我安慰。
It's a beautiful melody.
可现在我会莫名的哭。 当我想你的时候
It's also these unpredictable chords. We're having these chromatic notes or whatever in there. They're sort of switching things up a little bit. These little micro points of tension within the transfers between parts. It's really dope.
生命就像是一场告别，从起点对一切说再见。你拥有的仅仅是伤痕，在回望来路的时候，那天我们相遇在街上，彼此寒暄并报以微笑。我们像朋友般挥手道别，穿过身后因泪流满面。至少有10年。
And how the strings, they fluctuate like that is gorgeous.
至少有10首歌给我安慰，可现在我会莫名的心碎。当我想你的时候。
Interesting focus on the lead guitar there, the acoustic. Great, it sends a dynamic range to it.
我想你
Wonderful.
的时候，至少有10年我不曾流泪，至少有一些人给我安慰。
Such visceral vocal fry.
可现在我会。 我想你的时候，可现在我会莫名的哭 当我想你的时候。
Great chord to finish off on. It's fantastic. It's such a soulful chord that it's either a sus or like an Ed 9. And it's just a sense of brightness, glimmer, and hope to finish things off. It's a really interesting track. We're going to have a look through the lyrics, and we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. So as promised, we've got the lyrics for When I Miss You by Wang Feng. The day I'm walking in the sunset, see a pair of lovers snuggling up. That moment of things poured and oh, I get it. Effectively, he's been reminded of the love that he had for this person by other people close together. It's a difficult time for him. You've only got injury marks when looking back at the road the day we met on the street. He chills and reports a slight smile. Okay, I think I understand it. It's brutal, but clearly he really cares about this person. It's very much an expression of love, isn't it? Or of loss, but we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Wang Feng, titled When I Miss You. I actually think we might have reviewed this off the album that I've got in the top left of the screen. I apologize if I have, it's just been a while, but if I have reviewed it before, it's great to hear it. What do I think this track is about? As per the lyrics section, I think we discussed someone who is struggling with the fact that the grief of losing the one they love. What reminds me of that, the journey they've been on, the scars and the cuts and everything like that. They haven't felt like they could properly grieve over the 10 years potentially, but it's just a very deep song that does, I think, mirror what a lot of people might go through when they realize later how much that person meant to them. Not specifically at the point where they split, but afterwards, almost always when it's too late. I feel like there's more to it, more nuance there, but that's what I got on the first listen through and through reading the lyrics. I think Wang Feng's vocals here are tremendous. They are some of the most finely adapted and like accurate to the appropriate expression, I would suppose, ways of communicating lyrics we have here. I think part of what makes the singing work so well is not that we're adhering to the fundamentals of sort of really solid vocal technique across the head and chest voice, as well as eliciting vocal fry when needed to get a bit of oomph in the later ranges and to show how much this is affecting us. But it's also the lack of that fry that I hear in some other songs from Wang Feng through like albums, reviews, and live streams where it has been really hard for a lot of it. It's almost weird to hear a softer side of them. And I think being able to show the duality or the juxtaposition between those two is really important because it allows us to see Wang Feng as more of a musician than we might otherwise. A lot of versatility there, very pleasant to listen to across the board. I think coming in with like the harder vocals when you get the distorted guitars and the drums and the bass and everything come in like that is a smart move, and allowing it to come back down at the end for that outro with the softer parts speaks of a natural bell curve that we have through the progression and structure of the track that is very satisfying to go through. The track itself at 4.5 minutes I feel is well fleshed out. We have verses and choruses and interesting turns with the balladesque format with the various sort of acoustic clean guitar parts, the steel strings, as well as sort of flamenco, maybe a classical guitar lead in that solo section there with a phenomenal amount of dynamic range. With the strings is a great accent in regards to the harmony of the piece, working as a really effective assistant with Wang Feng's vocals on top of the focal point. I do appreciate that we had a lot of this track without the drums or the sort of bass. I think that it almost was more surprising when things came down and went back up, and then we had the distorted guitars coming in with the bass and the drums at the end for that double chorus. It made them incredibly impactful, and it was also almost like you wouldn't expect there to be like it's very rare to have that kind of guitar solo with that tone and texture and timbre in a track where it is effectively rock. Usually you'd have lead guitar near the end sort of embellish the second run of the chorus further, but I almost feel like we had enough of a journey with everything else through that first half in order to not necessitate further development later on. I just feel like that build there was just, you could just nod your head to it and just enjoy the fact that everything had come together. The bass guitar was very much more subtle and nuanced in this one, typically working with the root notes. when we didn't have the steel string arpeggios or really interesting chord progressions. It wasn't just majors and minors. There were some sus chords, some interesting inverted chords, maybe some sixth or sevenths or something like that. We explored the scale shapes as well. We had some chromatic melodies or movements there, some semitonal shifts between bass lines or chords, and we had even some question mark ones where it was like, why are we putting that there? But it modulates and makes sense. So I think the guitar playing is extravagant, but within the range of what's required for a piece like this. I think the lead playing was almost as complicated as some of the guitar parts, whilst being more sort of single string sort of oriented. It was I feel it was quite technical, and it's not an easy stuff to play. But they chew through it here, they smash it. And the drums, when they come in, typically working with the crashes, kick and cymbal focus, comfortable with the toms, but it was ultimately more of a cymbal kick, like kind of celebrating the groove and the build and the heights that you're flying at. Being very sort of like vibrant with the groove that we're feeling, and sort of the outcry that we have there, not wanting to sort of simmer with it too long, crying out like we discussed within the track. I feel like the drums are that extra bit of oomph required to really sort of elevate that. I think they are effective in that regard with the type performance. The strings, not all the time. The slow attack that we had to the loudest notes of the strings made for like a very sort of dramatic, but the way the chords resolved within the theme were very satisfying. Even if there were some chromatics, never felt like there were any sharp edges or uncomfortable situations or positions for us to be in as a listener or as a performer. And musically, compositionally, it made a lot of sense. Thematically, it's a piece where there's just so much color because of all the different chords and melodies that we're playing that it just never becomes old. It's just a wonderful piece to listen through in its entirety because of the consistent efforts to keep it fresh. It's major oriented, so you know that we're almost celebrating the fact that we got to love that person in the first place. We could also be happy that we're able to sort of finally exclaim our feelings about this and release them. It never becomes more minorish. It's definitely a really mature piece from a musician who clearly knew what they wanted to sort of communicate, and I think they did that well. And I feel like the only way you didn't have a better time with this track is if you understood the language natively. But even without understanding the language natively, I still felt like this was an accessible track that I could listen to regardless. The studio recording, mixing and mastering in this track was really effective. I'm really happy with the way things were handled in regards to the vocal quality, the quality of the actual vocal recording, the guitars, bass, drums, strings, everything else within it was really satisfying, well captured. There wasn't any overproduction or sterilization in there. There was dynamic range. Things were not the same loudness all the time. Music surrounded you in the headphones. Stereo field stuff was competently double tracked and positioned in a place where you could sort of figure everything out. It was nice and loud without pumping. Bass compression limiting was handled, and it's just commercial grade. And so when I listen to this track from Wang Feng, I understand why people love it. And I think it's a really sweet song that's accessible to a wider audience, and I understand why he is so revered. I'm thankful to have been able to review his music. But thank you for watching my review of this track from an actor named Wang Feng, titled When I Miss You, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show him some love via his various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.